Hello and a warm welcome to the show here on Indie Live Radio. This is the Locker Room, number one for sport, looking at, funnily enough, sport for the next hour. Mike McCune and Matthew Lingard. Hi, Matthew.
I feel like we're becoming the two Ronnies at this point. That's sort of similar. But yeah, hi everybody.
So my name is Ronnie McCune and Matthew's name is
Ronnie Dyler.
Yeah, exactly that. That's a good start to the show. So busy show this week. If you want to email us, please do. Email us at lockerroomindielive@gmail.com. That's lockerroomindielive@gmail.com, or you can look us up on Facebook as well. Just look for Locker Room Indie Live and you'll find us there. But the week on sport this week, let's kick off. See if I gig there, kick off with the football, because today was the draw for the Europa Cup, and I've got to say well done to Celtic and Rangers, both making the group stages of the Europa Cup, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, the sporting calendar this week has just been absolutely crazy. So you just never know where you're going because there seems to be so much sport happening. But I mean, the Europa League draw was brilliant for our teams. Scottish football's been struggling a little bit up to this point in Europe, up to maybe a few years ago, and that's been shown by the fact that Celtic and Rangers have to play about 50 qualifiers, to get round to the group stages. But now that obviously, and I will say Celtic and Rangers because sadly the other teams never made it, but now that Celtic and Rangers are performing well in Europe and beating some pretty good sides in the process, whether it was this year, last year or the year before, our coefficient points are now getting quite high, to the point that next year, Celtic and Rangers, assuming they finish top and second, will be able to join in the Champions League qualifiers together for the first time in what must be a decade.
I think the last game that happened, Matthew, Gig Hearts getting to the Champions League years ago, and they played Liverpool. Is that right? Or?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they managed to. My friend Graham will kill me because I kind of can't remember how the things worked out. But I'm sure, did they win at Anfield or get a? I can remember. Was it Templeton scored at Anfield and it went into extra time? Was it?
I'm not sure, but I think I know that they beat them at Tynecastle, but I don't know the score at Liverpool. So maybe if your pals listening, they can email in.
Oh, he'll tell me off. But I'm sure they got a great result at Anfield, and Templeton comes to mind, scored from outside the box or something, and I think it went all the way, but sadly Hearts went out in the end. But yeah. I mean, Scottish football has been doing great, and I think what it has shown probably over this qualifying campaign really has shown that the Old Firm have raised the bar really for Scottish football in Europe by reaching this group stage. And obviously, like we said, the improved coefficient means that the two Premier League clubs will enter the Champions League next term if they finish top, first and second, Celtic anyway. And when you think about it, like, not only have Celtic and Rangers been performing well, but I would go so far as to say the opposition that they've been playing in the qualifiers has also raised its bar standard-wise as well. So, Celtic and Rangers have been performing against better teams in the qualifiers, but also getting just as good, if not better, results. So that's one thing. But also, when you look at Celtic's record in Europe, I know Rangers were unfortunately not able to compete in Europe for a long time when they were started again or demoted, depending on your opinion. But Celtic have had 10 years now of getting to European group stage, so it's really positive.
And I mean, you must say as well, Matthew, that was a good performance from, first of all, Celtic, because they were the kick-off last night, but Rangers beating Galatasaray. I mean, Galatasaray is a big name in European football, no matter if it's Champions League or the Europa Cup, so that was a big kind of skill that Rangers had last night. But we find out today that the draw of the Europa Cup, and Celtic's in where are they, Matthew? Group H against EC Milan. EC Milan and
Sparta Prague.
Yeah, and Leo.
Michael, do you know, I think the reason you're forgetting these things is because the draw killed our will to live.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was nice of me and Matthew to virtually watch it together, but it took a long time.
I mean, I think that was the thing. We were watching the group together, and there was points when Celtic came out the pot or the hat or whatever they were using, and we were thinking, what group are they actually in? What's going on?
Exactly.
Rangers come out the hat. Who are Rangers playing?
I mean, it was that late, Matthew, that Matthew said, "Come on, Michael, let's go and do the show." And this was at 5 to 6. So Celtic has got EC Milan, and they have got Sparta Prague, and also they have got Lille as well. A tough group for Celtic, Matthew.
I think Celtic. I mean, Celtic were obviously seeded first, and I think the level of this group just shows how irrelevant that was, because they obviously got first seed, and then Sparta Prague, AC Milan, and Lille come out the hat. But what I would say, I mean, it's on the face of it, I think it's a Champions League sort of group. I mean, I know Celtic fans are quite sad that we've went out of the Champions League, or Celtic went out of the Champions League at that stage. But to have then drawn Sparta Prague, AC Milan and Lille of France in this group, it does look exciting. Now, I think Lille and AC Milan, you know, Celtic last year went to Lazio and played against Lazio and won twice. They played also... was it Nantes last year as well and beat them. So I think Celtic probably have the beating, because I think AC Milan are a worse side than Lazio. I don't think Lille's are a good side as Nantes. So I think Celtic, even though this group does look difficult, I think Celtic should be expecting to come out of this group, because AC Milan, I think last week we were talking about AC Milan against Shamrock Rovers.
Yeah.
I don't think AC Milan have got going yet. So even though they have got players like Ibrahimovic in the side, I don't think they've started to roll yet. Lille are another side that can be hot or cold. I don't know a lot about Sparta Prague, but the way Celtic have obviously been performing in Europe, they should have the beating of them. I could see Celtic maybe winning all 3 home games, and I think 9 points could be enough to get out of that group.
And by the way, just to, if people's got any fascination about letters or whatever, Celtic's in Group D. That's Rangers. Celtic is in Group H. Group H, not D, sorry. My mistake. I need to get my glasses upside the right way about. Rangers, and that's what it is, Matthew. Rangers was in Group D.
I mean, it's funny because Rangers were 3rd seed, and they have an easier group than Celtic, who were 1st seed. They obviously have Benfica, Standard Liège, and Poznan in their group. And again, it's not. I think it's not as big a group as Celtic, name wise. And when this draw came out the hat, I think Rangers fans were probably quite quietly confident of going through, and they should be, because I think Rangers, given that they've beat Galatasaray in the last round, I think they could have the beating of Benfica, Standard Liège and Poznan. Obviously, Scottish football teams can find away games a bit more tricky, but I could see Rangers winning all 3 home games against these guys and picking up points away from home. So I could actually, and it's not often I say this for Scottish football, but I think I could see Rangers topping that group, going on the evidence of what Rangers have performed like this season.
Yeah. I mean, the Rangers' league season has been going well, because I think it was only against Hibs, wasn't it? Well, Motherwell now lost 2 goals so far in the league.
Yeah, defensively they've been brilliant, and obviously attacking wise they have a lot of riches now up there. obviously they drew with Hibs at Easter Road, but that's not really, I wouldn't really say that's a disaster because Hibs have obviously came into that with really good form. Rangers have continued that good form into Europe, and to be honest, while Celtic sometimes have looked like they've stuttered and slowly got their way through this campaign, I can't really say the same of Rangers. I think Rangers have been quite impressive and have kind of almost, even though it was 2-1 last night, have almost managed to walk their way through the Europa League, and they fully deserve to be in the group stages as well. And like I say, I think they won't be, when they say they saw Benfica, Standard Liège and Leech Poznan coming out, I don't think they would have been overly concerned about that group.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Celtic might have looked at Milan and Lille and thought, oh goodness, I think that's the hardest games we could have got out of those seeds.
I mean, when you're, I know we're going to speak about the football fans maybe kind of coming back in, but I mean, going back to the Celtic game, Matthew, against Milan, obviously the fans who would want to be at all the games, but Sky United for that group, Celtic fans would want to not only maybe, well, they won't be allowed to go over to Milan, but certainly going to Parkhead for a big European night.
Yeah, you could see, I mean, with those three and the way Celtic do their tickets for the Europa League and Champions League, I could see really three sellouts for those games. And Rangers as well, obviously. Rangers have been almost, for the last decade anyway, kind of starved of European football up until really 3 years ago. I mean, I think this is their third consecutive time in Europe, and up those three or those two campaigns previously, they've filled Ibrox to the rafters as well. So, you know, Glasgow as a city, obviously those football teams individually, but Glasgow as a city is losing out financially on a great scale because you have obviously missing out on 6 games that would have had 50,000 and 60,000 respectively at them. And for football as a whole, it's devastating really that we can't all go and see these games.
Yeah, so goes come back to the Europa Cup draw. The first game will be played on match day 1, as I say, at the 22nd of October. And between stupid kickoff times at 6 o'clock and 8 o'clock as well. But I presume that the home games for the Old Firm will be 8 o'clock and the away games for the Old Firm will be 6 o'clock kickoff.
Yeah, you'd imagine that. You'd imagine that if fans were allowed. They might change that a bit because nobody's allowed in.
Yeah, well, that's true. And then on the final round of games, not that to get pressure at all, but it's December the 10th. So hopefully we'll have 2 games, 2 teams going through to the next round of Europe after Christmas. So let's speak about fans then, Matthew. It came out last night after in between the Celtic and Rangers game. It was coming out that UEFA made a statement about fans could be let back into the stadium. But as you were saying to me, that it's okay for UEFA to say that, but it's really up to the Scottish Government.
Yeah, I mean, I think UEFA came out and said that in their own UEFA way. I think they had a press conference or something, or a statement came out to state how that 30% would work, without actually telling anyone how it would really work. So it was a good sign, but it was kind of pointless. And also UEFA then, obviously after making that announcement, I think Rod Petrie, the SFA president, made a bit of a last gasp plea to Nicola Sturgeon for fans to get a reprieve for next week's Euro playoff against Israel and let fans back in. But you know, when you read the UEFA sort of statement, they've said, you know, they can have 30% of the stadium capacity after a trial of the Super Cup. Last week, I think Bayern Munich beat Seville 2-1 and 15,000 fans were in there and it went well. But obviously there was a little side bit to that the UEFA said it was subject to local laws. Now, like you just said and what we were talking about earlier, you know, really it's a bit of a pointless statement because really we're straight back to, you know, it's up to Nicola Sturgeon and the Scottish Government really as to whether fans are allowed back into stadiums.
Basically, they're just building fans up for a great fall.
Definitely, because you see these things, and I know I kind of got in the way of your happiness earlier when you came on and said that in a joyful voice until I did the typically Scottish thing of going, but.
Yeah, there's always a but.
Yeah, well, especially in Scotland. But I think it is what it is, and it's positive that UEFA are thinking along these lines. But we're talking in Scotland, about possibly having another lockdown in a couple of weeks' time. We were talking about Glasgow just being in lockdown and Lanarkshire being in lockdown, and other areas in Europe are still in lockdown. And Italy haven't been fast to let fans back in. A lot of areas haven't been fast, so I think we have to be honest with ourselves here and say, well, UEFA have said that I can't see football fans being allowed back this month. And then obviously you have to take it from there as to how the lockdown's going or the possible lockdown at the end of the month. But while we're having talks of these lockdowns, there's no way fans are going to be allowed back into the stadium in any large number. And, we just have to be honest about that.
I think a couple of weeks ago, Matthew, I know you were keeping your eye out on the 2 test games like I was, and I was watching the Ross County Celtic and Aberdeen. I think they play Kilmarnock that weekend at a test event. It was very well organised, and I was listening to a Ross County game after the game, and Celtic was winning. I think they were winning 3-0, 4-0 in the second half, 20 minutes to go. And I was saying, I wonder why the fans are not leaving, because you don't want the away team to win, if you know what I mean. But apparently that the fans had to skate in the stadium.
As punishment.
Yeah, and punishment exercise. But also they had to wait for the stewards to come out and get them. To say it's okay to go out. So they must have not allowed different people to go out at different times. They all had to go out at the one time.
Yeah, I think it was well marshalled. It has to be that way. I think we were talking about something like that earlier on, kind of like this about Celtic Park and people leaving. Can you imagine Celtic Park when you're not allowed to leave 5-10 minutes earlier?
Yeah.
It'd be anarchy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like going to the cinema, Matthew, right, and paying, was it £20, £25 to get in, and leaving before the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think because football, I'm going to say a really Scottish thing, but because football tickets cost so much, I don't really care what the score is. I'm going to get every last minute of that game.
And I think you can get away with saying something Scottish if you're on Indie Live Radio.
Yeah, it's typically Scottish, but even if whatever team I'm following, if it's Scotland, say for example, and Scotland are getting beat 5-0 off Spain or whatever, it doesn't matter. If I paid £30 for a ticket, I'm getting every ounce of that game.
Yeah. I think what's the point of going to the game, Matthew, right? If you come in 10 minutes late and leave 10 minutes early.
Exactly. And like I said, it's not cheap. If you're going to do that in a game, the game's a tenner, then fair enough. But if you're spending 25, £30 to get in, you might as well sit and enjoy it. But, I'd be amazed if Ross County fans did want to leave, in fairness, because they'd waited, 6-7 months for a game of football. Yeah. And then they just go, I'm away, I've had enough of this already.
Exactly. But, so we'll wait and see what kind of happens with that. And, yeah, I don't want to build the fans' hopes up, but it never came from me or Matthew. It came from a man at UEFA, and I'll get his email address if you want to email him and give him a bit of stick.
To be honest, UEFA statements are almost like me coming out and saying, yes, the locker room will say that 40% of fans will be allowed back into the stadium next week. It's equally as useless.
And Matthew said that. Well, they can get into the stadium next week because there's no football. It's Scotland gets playing, so... so Matthew said that, okay?
Well, UEFA's opened the doors and Nicola Sturgeon's at the door going, no.
No, you can't open the door, shut it again. Okay, so let's move on. Instead of talking about tomorrow's football. We've got some football tonight and also some football on Sunday, just because Scotland has got a few games next week, and like I said, you to play some games tonight. But I should tell you first that the Motherwell game is officially cancelled. I don't know why the SPFL came out and said last night the game might be off, even though there are 3 players out. And then it became a bit worse this morning, Matthew, but when they said another 3 players was off. So that was 6 players, but the game was still on.
Yeah, I mean, the SPFL, I mean, that St Mirren, I mean, to be honest, I think the UEFA, as a general rule of thumb, have made a bit of a mess with this, and it kind of started, with the Scotland-Czech Republic game, with the Czech Republic team coming down with COVID, and UEFA forced them to play the game. And then obviously you had the SFA making a hash of it as well with the St Mirren game, with the 3 keepers going out, and they were forced to play the game.
Yeah.
So I think they made a bit of a rod for their own back, because really the game should have been called off, and that should have been the end of it. But because the SPFL have done what they've done, and UEFA did what they did, there's a bit of a theme to this, and I think the SFA or the SPFL were trying to go with it. But Alex Dyer yesterday was even saying the squad's in complete limbo, even though 3 players had tested positive earlier in the week, like you said, and the NHS and Kilmarnock were saying that Kilmarnock should be unable to train. So on Thursday, things were in limbo, but it seemed quite obvious what should happen from a safety point of view. But obviously that developed.
And also, I don't want to say you're right, Matthew, but I'm going to say you're right, Matthew, because I remember a couple of weeks ago on the show you said that the SFA has made a precedent now, because if they put off the Mirren game, they've got to put off other games as well. And so well done for that one, Matthew. I think it's 1-0 there. But I'll get mine back, don't worry. So come on. Yeah, but
hey, it must be about 5-0 by now. We had Andy Webster, that's at least worth 4 goals.
Yeah, Shane Duffy. Yeah.
Shane Duffy.
I got his name right now. So the Motherwell game has been postponed, but at the moment the game against Falkirk is still on. Now I can't believe that, Matthew, because
can you not, Michael? Can you not?
No, I just can't. No, I can't get my head around that. No,
you can't get your head around. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
You can believe it, but
here we go again. Because they're supposed to be playing Falkirk next week in the League Cup. But because the Kilmarnock players has got to be isolated for 14 days, so
the SP.
There's no way that game's going to go ahead now, Matthew.
I mean, what have we? I mean, the thing is, so Kilmarnock have got about 6 players self-isolating, and then I think NHS Scotland basically said, no, your whole squad has got to isolate for 14 days. So the entire squad has got to isolate for 2 weeks from a few days ago. The game tonight the fact that it wasn't called off up until they're still discussing it up to the last seconds as to whether the game goes ahead, even though Kilmarnock have nobody. I mean, St Mirren didn't have goalkeepers, which was a disaster enough. Kilmarnock have no players.
Maybe they were making a decision at the Europa Cup draw. That's why it took a long time.
Well, maybe they're trying to get Kilmarnock to get 11. No, they'll need more. 15 or 16 loan players in by tonight to get it played. But yeah, I mean, the Falkirk game in the League Cup is Tuesday night. I mean, that is bad enough in itself that it should be called off. But the hash of the fact that up till 4 or 5 o'clock the SPFL are still discussing whether tonight's game goes ahead suggests what of a joke this is. But I mean, like you were talking before, the SPFL and UEFA, but the SPFL made a complete mess of the St Mirren situation, and because they've did that to St Mirren, now they've got to go through this process with Kilmarnock, and because of that, they're not making the decisions that are like you said, you can't get your head around it. They can't make the decision that the whole population's waiting for, because they know that if this game gets called off, or once this game gets called off, or once these 2 games get called off, St Mirren are going to be fuming, and rightly so.
Yeah. So the game's definitely off. The other game's on tonight.
No, Falkirk game's definitely not off yet.
No, that's maybe, yeah. That's a big question mark. Let's get a pen. The other game's on tonight.
Should we sign up? Maybe we should put our services across, Michael. We might get a game.
Yeah, well, I'm not. Yeah, okay. Maybe at half time. Yeah. So the other games on tonight is Aberdeen, St Mirren, Dundee United, Livingston, and Hibs and Hamilton. There's not really any games you would say it kind of stands out there, Matthew.
I mean, I'll say, Dundee United are always a good team to watch, obviously, and they're starting to get into the swing of things, and I think Shankland's starting to score goals, and because of that, I think that game will be quite a decent game to watch. But obviously, Aberdeen are playing, and it's Aberdeen are in a pretty good run of form at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see how they got on against St Mirren. Really, they've made a bit of a mess of the last few weeks, I think, since a few transfer dealings have went their way, or haven't went their way. They've obviously lost the defender, and so it'll be good to see how Aberdeen are shaping up. But on the same night, Hibs are playing Hamilton, and Hibs are obviously smarting a little bit from their last day out at Celtic Park, where even though, I think Hibs didn't embarrass themselves, I think they were taught a lesson. I think was it Doig, the fullback, who's had a really good season up to now. I think Frimpong sort of scared the living bejesus out of him on that Sunday, and he got taken off at half time, I think, just to give him some respite. And Lewis Stevenson came on in his place. So I think Hibs kind of were a bit naive at Celtic Park last week and thought they could go there and maybe outdo Celtic, which was refreshing, but it was a bit naive, and Ross might have learned from that, and they come in against Hamilton, and it'll be interesting to see how they recover, because we've never seen Hibs this season anyway have to bounce back from an absolute hammering, really. This is the first time, so it'll be interesting to see how Hibs respond from that, and if they can get back with the win against Hamilton, which is never easy. You just never know which Hamilton side are going to turn up.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I was going to say. Hamilton's been the big two, kind of like the old firm. I mean, I remember years ago when Rangers won the league, I think they went to Ibrox in the first game of the season and got a point. And I remember as well that back off of a European game, Hamilton went to Celtic Park and won 1-0, I think. So Hamilton's one of these kind of inconsistent teams, I think, that you don't know what you're going to get. Yeah, Dundee United, over the past couple of weeks, they've kind of went off the boil a wee bit. They started well, and I think they played some good football against Celtic as well, but after that, they went to, Ibrox, and got beat 4-0, 3-0, and then ever since then, it's just went a bit downhill. But yeah, I mean, they've got to start winning. But in saying that, Matthew, Livingston's quite a funny team as well against Hamilton, because they could sit in and hit you in the break and stuff like that. So you don't know what to expect for the two games. As for Aberdeen St Mirren, that could be another. Am I right in saying St Mirren's not won a game yet this season, so they're in a bit of bother? And Aberdeen, you would expect Aberdeen to win because they're at home, but it's not a given.
No, I mean I think that the SPFL table, or the SPL table this year, is quite interesting, because we've said all along, I think Rangers, Celtic, Hibs and Aberdeen look the best four, but below that, really anybody can beat anybody, I think. I really can't see St Mirren going to Pittodrie and picking up anything. Likewise, I can't see Hamilton going Easter Road and picking up anything, but you just don't know, because
never know, yeah.
Hamilton are the case in point. I always say Hamilton will go down every year, And then they start the season getting a complete tanking at Celtic Park, and you think, well, I told you.
Yeah.
But then, they go away and pick up results, say, at places like Livingston. So it's difficult to predict what's going to go on here. But, I think looking at it, I think there's 4 interesting games here. And while I think Aberdeen and Hibs will win, I can't really predict Dundee United, Livingston and Kilmarnock Motherwell because I think they're quite open contests.
Well, you wouldn't be able to predict the Kilmarnock Motherwell game because it's off.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
No, I can actually. I think Motherwell will win that game, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to sit on the fence and say it's going to be 0-0 that game. No, it's definitely off. But the Falkirk game might be on. I don't know. So there's 2 games on Sunday because of Celtic and Rangers being in Europe this week. St Johnstone against Celtic. That looks a good game. And also good game at Ibrox as well. I should say that the Celtic's St Johnstone Celtic game is a 12 o'clock kickoff. That's on Sky. And at 3 o'clock at Ibrox is Rangers against Ross County.
Yeah, I mean, Steve. Obviously, we're talking about Stephen Gerrard's team. They're flying high at the moment at the top of the table. And they'll be hoping to keep the momentum going. And Ross County will have it all to do. I mean, I think they are 7th placed in the league at the moment. And again, they've had one of those seasons that we were talking about, up and down. And they're going into play against Rangers, who aren't conceding goals very much. They're one of the best defences in the league. And obviously, they're scoring goals for fun as well. So Ross County won't be looking forward to that. And like we were saying about the Galatasaray game last night, I think Rangers were absolutely superb, and Ross County will be watching that thinking, oh goodness, how are we going to defend against this? Because I think Stephen Gerrard's side are actually unbeaten in the last 11 matches in all competitions.
Mm-hmm.
And really, the Morelos looked good last night. Hadji looked good last night. Goldson looked good. Kent looked good. They were just brilliant all over the park. And also, even though Hadji was playing, I think they've got a young guy who came in last week against Motherwell. Was it Jones? Who looks like he could be the one for the future because he was so fast getting up and down that park. So he looks good. There's sort of options all over the pitch. But, I mean, the guy I was most impressed with last night for Rangers, and the one who kind of has been looking the most impressed of all year, is one of the top goal scorers in Scottish football. Can you guess who I'm going to talk about?
No.
You'll never guess it. James Tavernier.
I was going to say him as well. No.
I think he has just been... I mean, he's scoring goals for fun, whether it's free kicks, whether it's penalties, but at the back, he's also looking quite domineering as well. So, I think he's been Rangers' best player this season. And it doesn't look like stopping. If you've got a defender who can defend but score goals, you've got a player there. And Tavernier seems to get a lot of stick from Rangers fans, but to be honest, this year I think he has been absolutely outstanding, and he was my man of the match last night against a really good Galatasaray side offensively. So I was really impressed with him. And Celtic St Johnstone was the other game you mentioned. After, I mean, obviously it's on the Sunday after the Europa League games. St Johnstone are currently at the bottom of the league alongside Hamilton and St Mirren. And they're obviously desperate for a win. I think their last game was a 2-0 home defeat against Livingston, so they'll need... Well, I don't want to say a miracle to steal anything from this game, but like the way it looks, they might need a miracle because Celtic are currently only 1 point behind Rangers. And while Rangers have been outstanding this year, Celtic have been hot and cold. But, even though they've been hot and cold, they're still only 1 point behind Rangers with a game in hand. And last week, they absolutely hammered Hibs. I mean, I think I was a bit... I was looking forward to the game against Hibernian at Celtic Park. Hibs obviously were doing really well, and I thought it was Celtic's first big challenge of the season domestically, and Celtic probably played their best game of the season, to be honest, against Hibs. They were unbelievable.
They played well last night as well in parts, especially second half.
Yeah, I mean, the first half, I thought, I mean, first half had a lot of possession. They were a bit sloppy with their play the first half. I thought they had a lot of possession. They never really got going. I think the main point of the first half was when Beaton went off
Mm.
with a bad ankle. I think he might be the worry, but from a Scotland point of view, that's quite interesting because he's likely now to miss the Scotland-Israel game next week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think, first half, yeah, it wasn't the greatest, but the second half, I thought Celtic were brilliant. They actually used the possession well. I think while they didn't do that in the first half, second half they used it well. There was a few shots on target that they could have scored before they eventually did. And I think Christie was causing absolute mayhem up and down the pitch, but also Taylor I thought had a pretty good game. And to be fair, I think that was his first really good performance of the season. I've been critical of him as a left wing back up until now, but I think he played quite well and looked impressive if he can keep that up. But again, it was an Edouard goal. Christie, it was a good move all round. That it resulted in a Christie shot. The keeper could have really dealt with it, but he didn't, and it fell to Edouard who scored. And I thought Christie again was my man of the match. But again, if you're St Johnstone, you're a bit like Ross County. If you're St Johnstone watching that game, you think, well, where's our chances going to come from? And how are we going to keep this team out? But again, maybe Sarajevo sort of showed the way in the sense that you can see how St Johnstone will have to play this on Sunday. They're going to park the bus.
So yeah, we'll look ahead to the Scotland game next week on the show against Israel and stuff. Some more news coming out of football this week, Matthew, to do is Dundee United, what I was speaking about last week in the show.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that, was it Massgate we were calling it? Yeah. I think Mark Conley, he's been given a suspended 2-match ban for Massgate. I think the Scottish FA hearing was yesterday, and he was given the sanction that will only take effect if he doesn't wear his mask again before the 31st of March, the naughty boy.
Naughty boy.
Yeah, so if any taxi drivers see Mark Conley out in Dundee without your mask, grass him up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He won't be going out for Halloween then, or that's for sure.
I mean, the thing is, I think Dundee United initially thought, well, it's an internal matter. We've looked at it, he'll get a telling off. But like we were saying, I think because of the Aberdeen situation and obviously the situation with regards to Bolingoli, I think the SFA were keen to put their foot down with it, and Conley was never really going to get away with this scot-free because of the situation and because the Scottish Government are watching football like a hawk. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where this punishment has came from. I mean, I think Dundee United, I kind of agree. I think it should have been an internal matter, but yeah, I think because of the situation with COVID and football and the Scottish Government, I think the SFA had to be seen to be doing something.
And also the League Cup games next week. The Kilmarnock game, Falkirk game is on at the moment, but I don't know I don't know how it's going on. Hearts is playing. Are they playing Dunfermline next week? Or
they're playing Inverness.
Oh.
And I think that game's on the TV, Premier Sports.
Yeah.
I think that game kind of looks like the pick of the bunch. I think we've all been waiting to see how Hearts respond to the mess that they were kind of in, not from a SFA or SPFL point of view, just the footballing mess they were in, because even, I think we all forget, up until COVID happened, Hearts were in a downward spiral. So it'll be interesting to see really how they perform on the footballing pitch against Inverness. They'll probably have a bit of a chip on their shoulder. I could see Hearts coming into this game and probably putting on a little bit of a show, because I think they have got that chip on their shoulder. Them and Partick Thistle will be raring to go in this League Cup, and I think for Inverness they might be the ones on the receiving end of it. But there's also an East Derby, well, an East Central Derby. Edinburgh City are playing Livingston as well, so that's an interesting game to see how that goes. And on the Wednesday, I think the other teams really have struggled with this COVID crisis along with Hearts, the sort of non-league teams. Hibs are playing Brora Rangers at Easter Road. and Kelty Hearts are playing St Johnstone. So it will be interesting to see how those two teams face off against two Premier League opponents, because they will also feel that they should have had a crack at league football last year, and they'll be looking to show that in the League Cup.
And also, don't forget that, well, you should know this by now, but the teams in Europe, Celtic, Rangers, Motherwell and Aberdeen won't come into the league section until, was it the quarterfinals last year that they come in?
Yeah, once that's over, they'll come in.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I'm amazed the League Cup's going ahead, to be honest, because I mean, not only are a lot of these teams not being tested, and I think a lot of the Premier League teams are a bit anxious that a lot of the sort of lower down league teams aren't being tested properly, or not being tested to the extent that the SPL sides are. So there's a bit of an anxiousness about that, but also the lower league teams kind of need crowds to come in to be able to pay their wages and everything. So I'm amazed that the League Cup's going ahead.
And just to confuse you even more, even though I'm confused a lot, that even though the League Cup's this season, but coming up in October, I think it is the last year's semi-final of the Scottish Cup, and we'll speak about that coming up on the show in the coming weeks. You're listening to Indie Live Radio on a Friday night, number one for sport. This is The Locker Room with Michael McCune and Matthew Lingard. If you get any comments to say, keep them nice. It's the fam of the show. You can email us lockerroomindielive at gmail.com. That's lockerroomindielive@gmail.com, or you can follow us on Facebook as well. Okay, let's move on from football and speak about NFL, Matthew.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be a pain, and just quickly, can I just quickly say some of the Champions League draw? Because I know,
okay.
I know you want to remember to put it down just because there's no Scottish team sadly involved. But there was one. There's one Scottish interest in the Champions League that I just wanted to mention. Group H of the Champions League. Now, if you don't know this might make you mad, actually, Michael. Group H of the Champions League is probably the most interesting, one of the most interesting ties. PSG, Manchester United, and Leipzig. But a certain team from Istanbul are also in the Champions League in Group H, and they star one Bolingoli in their team.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
If he's in the country,
yeah.
He might be with some girl in Spain again. But if he's in Turkey, you might see him in the Champions League.
Maybe some Celtic fans are calling him a big turkey. Anyway, let's move on. But yeah, I mean that would be interesting if Celtic was playing against Bolingoli. And could you imagine it? Well,
no.
Maybe not.
But there's also one more group that's got an interesting side of things to do with Scottish football and Celtic. You know, Group G: Juventus, Barcelona, Dynamo Kiev, and Ferencváros.
Oh, yeah. That's a name from the past.
So two of those Champions League groups have got sad connotations for Celtic this year. You know, Ferencváros or Bolingoli. But take your pick. Who annoys you the most?
Take your pick. Yeah, email us in and take your pick. Yeah. So in NFL, Matthew. Of course, Matthew's been working so hard over the past couple of weeks, and he's been up all night watching American football. I'm giving you a big build-up here, Matthew. You better not let me down.
I wonder, it'd be interesting to know if anybody could message in to see if this actually is wanted, because I know the NFL is a niche market and I'm giving it out, but I'm just always curious as to whether anyone bothers about the NFL or whether you want me to talk about some other sport. But I mean, the NFL was interesting this week because it's got Kilmarnock sort of connotations here, because, you know, while the SPFL...
Well, I thought you were going to say they've got a team in the... NFL called Kilmarnock.
Well, do you want to hear the difference with this? What the incident? The NFL Titans against Steelers this week. Now, the Titans had COVID-related incidents with staff players and coaching staff this week. The NFL quickly moved to move it to a later part of the season after the coronavirus cases. So can you see the difference between how the NFL dealt with that and the mess we have?
Exactly.
So it was interesting to see how different sports deal with it. And, you know, like while we're dilly-dallying over whether Falkirk should play Kilmarnock and whether Kilmarnock players should almost illegally play the game.
I'm looking forward to that game as well.
Well, it was just one of those games. But it was interesting to see how the NFL dealt with that, and they dealt with it fast. The 3 games this weekend that I've chosen to maybe talk about: Indianapolis Colts are playing the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are 3-0 for the season, so they've won all their games going into this game. But Indianapolis Colts are probably the best team they've came up against this season so far, and they might be too strong for the Chicago Bears. The Colts lead the league on turnovers and are defensively pretty good, and that's where the Chicago Bears tend to struggle. So I think the Indianapolis Colts will probably win that one. One of the big games of the weekend is the New England Patriots, and they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, that's one of the big games. The Patriots are almost like, say, your Manchester United, maybe, who are one of the most successful teams but are struggling at the moment. And Kansas City Chiefs are maybe like your Liverpool. They've been struggling a little bit up until now, but won the Super Bowl last year. So it's quite interesting how this game will play out. The Kansas City Chiefs have got the best offense in the league, while the New England Patriots have probably got the best unit of defensive backs in the league. So that'll be interesting to see how that sort of chess game happens. Cam Newton, though, I think may struggle as well against this Kansas City defence, who have been quite good this year. So I think while the Patriots are coming back onto some form and have been okay this year, I think, again, the Kansas City Chiefs will be too strong for them. And the way they demolished Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore on Monday was a bit of a scary sign for the NFL as a whole. That'll be quite hard to take down Kansas City Chiefs in the long run. And my last game is the Los Angeles Chargers against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You might know Tom Brady. Do you know Tom Brady, the quarterback?
Yeah.
He is obviously playing alongside his offense, and the more games that he gets every week, the better they look. Defensively, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers look quite strong as well, especially against the running game, which is what the Chargers are good at. So while the Chargers are good at running, obviously Henry and players like that, the Buccaneers are quite good defensively at dealing with that. So I've gone with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this weekend. So there's some quite interesting games going ahead. But not the Titans. But not the Titans Steelers.
But not Kilmarnock.
No, they'll have to wait till next week. No, they wait.
14 days. So how I take it the season's just begun, Matthew? Yeah, get the play up to Christmas.
It's not long in, yeah. So they play up to sort of end of the year, just maybe slightly into the new year. That's their normal league season. And then based on their conferences, the top teams then go through to the playoffs, and they'll play the playoffs up until obviously you get to ultimately the Super Bowl, which tends to be played sort of first weekend in February.
Mm. Oh well, then that'll be good. And all the games are on, is it BBC Sky this year?
You can get a lot of the highlights on BBC. I think you can possibly get a Monday night game or a Sunday night game, one of the two on Channel 5.
You can just add Matthew on Facebook.
yeah, or you could just add Matthew. Yeah, but also Sky Sports have them. And then if you're really into the NFL, you can pay £120 or something for the year, and you get something called Game Pass, which means you can watch every game over there if you want to.
So is it something similar to what we're doing over here with football, where different clubs can purchase the game through their own channel, or no?
It tends to be more widespread than that from a TV station point of view. So you tend to find that there's quite large stations over there like CBS, ESPN and Fox. So every game's televised, but it's just that you have to then make sure that you have the network to watch what specific games you want to watch. But that's in the States. It's a bit easier over here. You just pay one subscription and you can watch most of the games live from here.
Yeah. Also, so that's the NFL back up and running. Another sport is back up and running. I think it's this weekend, the beginning of the Pro 14. And I know that you've been talking about it for the past couple of weeks, couple of months on the show, but you've got news this week about the fixtures.
Yeah, it's starting again. This is the first weekend of the Pro 14. I'm going to confuse everybody now. The Pro 14 is starting off with 12 teams, but it could end with 16 teams. Yeah, so I don't know. It's a mystery to me. Basically, it's only 12 this year at the moment because partially COVID restrictions and partially financial problems. But for whatever one of those two reasons, the South African teams currently are not going to start the season. I think it's mainly COVID related. So the current two South African teams won't start the Pro 14 until that sort of dies down in Africa, but also here in Scotland or Wales or Ireland. So it will start off with the 12 teams, but South Africa currently are going through a bit of a restructuring in their rugby. So they currently play against the best club sides from Australia and New Zealand. But, that contract's come to an end, and I think South Africa are getting a bit fed up with playing Australian sides and New Zealand sides. So they're looking to maybe join a sort of European hemisphere sort of league. And that's where the discussions came into being that some of the South African teams would leave that set up and join the Pro 14. So it could well be by the end of this season, we'll have the South African contingent that will make the Pro 16 and we'll have the best sides from South Africa, Ireland, Scotland and Wales in it. So while the Pro 14 maybe is seen as the lesser league in Europe compared to maybe the French league and the Premiership down in England, with the South African teams joining, the Pro 14 will look like a pretty decent league setup. And it's quite exciting.
So yeah, and also the games are usually on BT Sport, Matthew. Yeah.
Well, the European games tend to be on BT Sport, so you'll see like most of the sides play in the European competitions on BT. The Pro 14 tends to be on Premier Sports, but they'll have every game. So if you want to watch a Pro 14 game, you can watch any game on Premier Sports. Or in Ireland, if you're listening to this in Ireland, it's on Air Sports. So you can get them. It's always competitive. I mean, Leinster have ran away with the last few leagues, but under Leinster, it's always quite competitive. So there's a lot of teams kind of on the same level. So you've got Munster and Ulster, similar sort of level over here, and then Edinburgh and Glasgow have obviously Edinburgh have caught up with Glasgow, so it's a big campaign for Edinburgh this year. They managed to get to the semi-finals in the Pro 14. They managed also to get to the quarter-final stages of the European campaign, so they'll be looking really to push on and try and get to maybe some finals this year. And I think Edinburgh have the side to do it. It was a shame they got knocked out by Ulster in the Pro 14, and were really just for the first 20 minutes of the game in Bordeaux, they were just outclassed, but they came back into it and they were always looking like they could maybe mount a comeback in Bordeaux, so they're pretty impressive, and I think they go into this campaign pretty confident. Yeah. Glasgow's a bit different. I mean, Glasgow have struggled a little bit over the past year. They changed management team during the lockdown. I think Danny Wilson came in, so Glasgow really, in this very short pre-season, have been trying to Danny Wilson's been trying to put his stamp on his own team over the very little pre-season he's had. So Glasgow start the campaign over here where I am in Connacht. So they play down in Galway, and Edinburgh start the campaign at Murrayfield against Ospreys. So it'll be interesting to see where they're at this coming campaign. And it's quite good to have rugby back. I mean, I know it's only been, a month. but it is quite good to have rugby back. And
Yeah.
a bit of news, I think Ulster Rugby are playing this weekend, I think against Benetton at Belfast Kingspan Stadium, but they're having some fans in the stadium.
Oh, that'll
for
be
that.
interesting to see. Yeah.
Yeah, which is a bit strange because Belfast's currently under a bit of a lockdown at the moment. So I assumed that this test event would be cancelled, but it's going ahead. And Ulster fans this week have been sort of applying to get tickets into this first game of the season. So it'll be interesting if you're watching that in Belfast. I think it's at 8:30 possibly, or 8 o'clock tonight. You'll be able to see some fans at Ravenhill.
Oh, that'll be good. So we good to see if you can watch that game. I think it was a wee update on that next week and stuff like that. That's your homework for the week. So okay, well, thanks for listening. It's been a busy show full of football, NFL and Pro 14. If you want to have an idea for the show, or if there's something that we're not talking about, you can email us at thelockerroomindielive@gmail.com. That's thelockerroomindielive@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can listen to the show again on the podcast. Just go to the podcast link on the Indie Live Radio website, and you can hear the show again every Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the morning. So that's all for us this week. Well, I hope you have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week, and I'll see you soon, Matthew.
Cheers, take care, Michael. Slán.
This is a new voice for a new Scotland.
Indie Live Radio.